where we continue our discussions that are all about you and your immune system. It's so important to know something about the house we live in, isn't it? When I was 18 and it was time to get my licence, because in Australia you have to be 18 to get your licence, my father told me that I could not get my licence until I learned how an engine worked. I tell you, I was not happy. None of my girlfriends had to learn how an engine worked before they got their licences. There's my brother, then me, then 3 younger girls. So as the first girl, everything gets tried out on the first girl. And I can remember sitting with Dad every night and he'd talk about the spark plugs going up and the pistons going up and down and something like that anyway. But doesn't that make a lot of sense? It doesn't mean that I'm a mechanic. It doesn't mean that I have to know all the ins and outs in detail. But that makes sense, doesn't it? To know a little bit about how an engine works if you're going to drive an engine. But how much more important it is to know something about the house that we live in, to know how it works. And I love the proverb. Proverbs 14 verse 6 says, "A scorner seeketh wisdom and findeth it not, but knowledge is easy to him that understands." When you understand how the body works, then you begin to understand, to know what to do to it. So I'm going to give you the story of a little boy. And this little boy, I met him in New Zealand. He's 7, and his mother came to see me to ask me some questions. And when he came into the room, he's holding his finger like this. And his finger was twice the size. And I said, what happened to that finger? Isn't that the first thing you ask? Now, it was red and the top, it was sealed, but it was all white with pus at the top and huge. The mother said, well, we've been to the doctor and it's cellulitis. You know what cellulitis is? Inflammation of the cell. Well, that's not rocket science, is it? We can see it's inflamed. But have you noticed names are given? Names. And I said, yes, but what happened to that finger? What caused the finger? And apparently the little boy had a blister, and the blister broke, and the mother didn't know it had broken, and he's outside in the dirt playing with his matchbox cars. So what's happened now, his front line defence skin has been rubbed off, and so now you've got raw flesh underneath and all sorts of dirt. Everything's going into that finger. And of course the little boy didn't even think about it. But what happened was that night it started to swell. That's not unusual, isn't it? Now, why did it swell? It started to swell because there was dirt there, and the lymphatic system came along, and the lymphatic system made the whole area swelled, which actually caused a constriction of the blood vessels going in, which actually helps prevent any harmful pathogens going to other parts of the body. Often where there's an injury, the blood tends to sit or pool in the area. And what we have to do is move that along. I said, what have you been doing? And she said, well, he's on his 2nd course of antibiotics. So this is a week and a half now. I don't know what it would look like without the antibiotics, because it looked pretty bad. She said he's taking painkillers and he's taking sleeping tablets to sleep at night. And he's 7. Now, what are the sleeping tablets and the painkillers going to do to the gut flora that lines his gastrointestinal tract? And also, what are those medications going to do to his kidneys and his liver? I said, can I try something? She said, please. So I got 2 cups. And in 1 cup, I put hot water. Now, some nights when I get home from here, I'm a little cool and I have a hot shower. And at first, the hot shower on my skin, I'm not cold, but I'm a little cool. It's, because hot initially is stimulating, isn't that right? It's stimulating. The initial effect of hot on the body is stimulating. And so I put his finger in the hot water. I put his good finger in because you've got to work with the person. They've got to be comfortable and happy with what's happening. So he put his good finger in, that was okay. And then he put his sore finger in and, too hot. That's all right, we'll put a bit of cool in. We'll keep doing that until he's happy with it. Because I know after the cold dunk, he's going to be able to handle more hot. So by the time he gets it in, what I do is I just do the hot for 3 minutes. And then everything starts to slow down. So if you're a little cool and you get into a hot bath, it takes a little bit to get in because you're a bit cool. It's stimulating. And then once you're in that hot bath, it takes about 3 minutes to get to a slowing down. I don't want it to slow down, because what am I stimulating? I'm stimulating blood. So before it's got a time to slow down, I put it in the cold. And cold, initiating is stimulating. Have you tried your cold shower after your hot? It's stimulating. And the reason it's stimulating is because we're warm-blooded creatures. So when cold water touches the skin, there's a reaction. And the reaction is to stimulate. It's almost as if the body's saying, quick, move, this stuff's got the potential to kill us. And people can die of hypothermia, meaning they're in the cold water for so long, their whole body slows down and stops. And that's why so many people died with the Titanic, because the Titanic went down, and of course, what did it hit? An iceberg. What's the temperature in the water? Freezing. And so the people that were in the water, their bodies just slowed right down and stopped. That's why they died. So the body knows that when cold water touches it, this is possibly an enemy, so there's a reaction. But it only takes 30 seconds before there's a slowdown. So after 30 seconds, we take it out of the cold water and we put it back into the hot. While it's in the cold, we put a little boiling water in the hot to bring it up. He's watching me. I said, put your good finger in. Are you happy with that? Yes. And he tries his sore finger, and this time he can handle it. How long do I leave it in the hot? 3 minutes. And before it's got time to slow down, what do? Put it back in the cold. So I do this whole process 3 times. Now, nearing the end of the second lot of 3 minutes hot, a smile comes to the little boy's face. Why? He's got relief. He's getting relief. Why is he getting relief? Because when I am stimulating hot, stimulating cold, I'm keeping up the stimulating effect because I'm stimulating blood. I'm getting more oxygen into the area, more nutrients into the area, more water into the area. I'm increasing the blood's ability to carry away the waste. And I'm also bringing more white blood cells. In fact, what I did there was everything that finger needs to heal. Did you know that nurses used to learn hydrotherapy? Hydrotherapy is water therapy. There are whole textbooks on it. And I have got the nurse's textbook on hydrotherapy. And when I was in, I think it was Singapore, about 3 years ago, I was talking to an 80-year-old lady that came to the meetings. She said, I trained in the San Hospital, Sydney, when I was 18. So that's a long time ago. That's 50 years ago. And she said, yes, we learned hydrotherapy. And my sister had her baby there 35 years ago, and the hydrotherapy department was still there. But unfortunately, 20 years ago, they dismantled the hydrotherapy department and no longer use it. So nurses used to learn this. They used to learn water therapy. So you can do it on fingers, you can do it on feet. One of our workers got a knee injury, and he would put 2 buckets there, get on his hands and knees and put the knee in the hot, then the knee in the cold, then the knee in the hot. You can also sit in it. Why would you sit in it? You would sit and do 33 minutes hot, 30 seconds cold, 3 times for constipation, for diarrhea, for hemorrhoids. You would do it for kidney problems. You would do it for fibroids in the uterus, cysts in the ovaries, any problem in that area. Because what's the healer? It's the blood. But to make sure that the blood you're bringing to that injured area is of the best, we need to make sure that we're adhering to the 8 laws of health. Adequate oxygen, there's your pure air, and the best way to get pure air is exercise. There were 3 of us this morning running up and down the mountains. Baby was in the stroller. And I have to tell you, the one pushing the stroller, which was Sasha, she was ahead of us. The fresh morning air with the trees giving off their oxygen. What's the 3rd law? Stop. Stop anything that will harm that blood. No stimulants, nothing that has a stimulating effect, like refined sugar, teas, coffees, alcohol. Sorry, the Y has to go to fit everything in. What's the 4th law? The 4th law of health is rest. Go to bed early so you get that recharging and that reviving every single night. Sunshine. When you put the area in the sunshine, that moves blood. Any area that the sun hits moves blood. You move blood, you got more of all of this. You got more life. Six, proper diet. We need to be supplying the right amount of fuel and the right type of fuel for our blood, which is high fibre, generous proteins, great fats. 7 is water. Your blood can't carry water if you're not putting enough in. So the water needs to be at least 8 glasses a day. 8 plus. And the 8th law is trusting God. Trusting God. So we need to make sure that our blood is of the best quality to be able to heal the body by giving it everything it needs. They are the true remedies. There's your foundation. That's what I started with when I first got into natural health. And I'm never going to get away from it because it's the true remedies. That's your foundation. So by the end of this, now how long does that, any mathematicians here, how long does that take? What, 12 minutes? Am I right? How long does it take for Tylenol to have an effect? 20, 30 minutes? Hydrotherapy has been used as a painkiller for centuries, and in the area of pain relief, it is without equal. No side effects with this one. By the end of it, this little boy had the biggest smile on his face. What's he got? Relief. And next time you get a splinter in your finger, leave it there, let it get red and pussy, just so that you can experience that. Then I grated a potato. I made it a tiny little potato, maybe only half a teaspoon of grated potato, and I made a little package like I showed you on Tuesday, put a little bit of plastic over it and taped it on, and then asked him if I could pray for it. Oh, he would have let me do anything. Because for the first time in 10 days, he got relief. So I prayed that God would bless this simple potato poultice. This was about 10 o'clock in the morning. When they got home, he said to his mother, "Can we do that again?" Why did he say that? Because of the relief that he had. And what was happening, it was starting to swell again. And so he did that again. And he got the relief again. Put in a fresh grated potato. Always when you're using vegetable matter, make a fresh one. And that evening, the mother took it off. Every time they took it off, the finger was going down a little bit more, a little bit more. He had his shower, they put another one on, did another hot and colds and another one. She said that when he woke up in the morning and they took it off, everything came away. The whole top had opened. It was opening a little bit more every time, but the whole top, everything came away. And the finger was back to normal. Now that night was the first night that he'd had a decent sleep. No need for painkillers, no need for sleeping tablets. She said, "What will I do about the antibiotics?" I said, "I'll leave it up to you. I can tell you what I do, but I have no authority over your medication. Only you and your doctor do. It is your body and it is your God-given right to choose exactly what goes in or out of your body. That's something that God has given us." The mother didn't know what to do, but now she does. And that little boy, he will take that experience with him all through his life. And I think this is why all my children, they don't vaccinate their children. And when their children get sick, I don't think my grandchildren have been to a doctor. My children never went to a doctor. Well, when Peter was sick with asthma, I took a couple of times, but when I saw the drugs weren't really doing anything and I read the side effect of the drugs, I stopped doing that. Absolutely, if you're at all concerned about your little one, have your little one assessed. Absolutely. I remember leaving the doctor because Emma had a fever for 7 days when she was 7. And I took the script of the antibiotic. She had a chest infection. I said, "Oh, well, we can conquer that." And by the way, the fever is helping to conquer that. Because as when we looked at that in our natural remedies 2 days ago, fever's your friend. Fever does a dramatic boost of this. So we created a little fever in that finger by putting it in really hot water, then cold, then really hot, then cold. Well, when you've got a fever, your whole body is doing it. Fever is a wonderful process to bring about healing in the body. In fact, at our retreat, we give everyone a fever every night. We have the steam bath down by the creek. We put them in the steam bath. They get really hot, then they dive in the cold stream, but they're probably in the hot steam bath for maybe 10 minutes, and then back in the hot steam, and then back in the cold. The whole body we're doing. We're creating a fever. There's no need to fear fevers. And I'm just going to recap what the fever does, in case there's anyone here who wasn't here the other day. All through Europe, health centres have created fevers as a way of boosting the healing powers of the body. So remember, fever is your friend. It does a great job at boosting your red and white blood cells from your bone marrow. Fever also can burn up and literally kill parasites, bacteria. Fever needs a bit of water, so water, remember, water puts the fire out. Water in and water out, so make sure the person's well hydrated. A well hydrated brain will not convulse. So I loved it when my children babies had a fever, they'd want to suckle, they want to nurse because they're not feeling well. Well, I let them nurse as much as they wanted because I'm getting more liquid in. And all my babies had a fever at some time, but none of them convulsed. So what if the baby's bottle fed and just doesn't want the bottle? Well, what you can do is even little teaspoons of water that you can get in, and the coconut water. The coconut water is very high in minerals, and sometimes they'll take it and like it because it's slightly naturally sweet. Or sucking on ice, or laying them in the cool bath. Well, not hot bath, not cold bath, just lukewarm, which if they're hot, it would be slightly cool, and the water takes the heat out. And remember, when all the we'll say trash, we call it rubbish, when trash is all burnt up, the fire goes out. That's not right. So it's a purpose. It's not the enemy. When trash is burnt, fire goes out. I get so many emails from people who are terrified of the fever. Fever's nothing to be terrified of. Just work with the fever. Remember, the body's designed to heal itself, and it uses fever as a very powerful way to stimulate healing. I looked at the live blood analysis. I did live blood analysis on a little girl once. We had a couple come with 3 children and they wanted them to do a live blood analysis. And this little girl, her white blood cells were 3 times what they usually are. I thought, that's interesting. And then I discovered the little girl had been vomiting. So when you've got a cold, when you've got some sickness in your body, your white blood cells can be 3 times what they usually are. And that's nothing to fear. They're there for a reason. They're there for a reason. Remember that. What if someone's white blood cells are low? Why would they be low? Antibiotics can wipe them out. Refined sugar can wipe them out. Dr. Neil Nedley, in his book, Proof Positive, he shows in that book how many white blood cells are killed with every teaspoon of sugar. Chemotherapy really wipes out the white blood cells. See, this makes no sense to me, because if the body's designed to heal itself, the most intelligent way to work with this is to work with the healing powers of the body. What's the healing power of the body? It's the blood. It's the blood. That's why hydrotherapy is so effective. And in the book, Ministry of Healing, page 127, she says, nature's process of healing and upbuilding is gradual. To the impatient, it seems too slow. She says, the use of natural remedies requires an amount of care and effort that many aren't prepared to give. And I know that that is why the hydrotherapy department in hospitals like the SAN in Sydney have been taken away, because they take too much time. It's so much easier to give someone a tablet than to get buckets and do the hot and colds. But they're a very powerful treatment. If we have guests who have a headache, and everyone coming off coffee will have a headache, we give them a hot foot bath. So for the hot foot bath, it's just 20 minutes with their feet in hot. Maybe every 5 minutes, put a little bit of more boiling water, and I always put my hand there between their feet and the little bit of boiling water. You keep it hot. So why does a hot foot bath work for a headache? Well, what the feet are is a reflex for abdomen, for chest, and for head. And so if there's congestion in the head and you put the feet in hot water, it'll pull the excess blood down to the feet so it can relieve a headache. It can certainly relieve a congested chest, and it can relieve congestion also in the sinus areas. That's the straight hot foot bath. And when the hot foot bath, it's going for 20 minutes, is finished, You get the person to put their feet up in the air and you just pour a cup of cold water over it. Because what cold does, and you always start with hot, you always end with the colds, cold equalises circulation, closes the pores and prevents chilling. That's why the best protection against winter colds and flus is finishing every hot shower in the morning with cold, and then make sure you have something raw for breakfast. That's your raw fruits, and also some hot. And breathe in fresh air. Those three things go a long way to helping someone prevent winter colds and flus. So the fever is not the enemy. So I'd like to tell you the story of what happened to me when I was in Papua New Guinea. I was taken up into the interior, into some little villages there that had no running water, no electricity. And when we got there, we were an attraction. White person's an attraction, so a lot of people came out to see us. And I saw a man who had a bandaged hand, and he was holding his hand, and I could tell he was in pain. So I was immediately attracted to this. I said, "What's the matter with the hand?" Now, they couldn't understand me, so I had an interpreter. Oh, it was a hunting accident, and it happened 2 days ago. And a knife went through his hand almost to the other side. I said, "Can I have a look?" And the hand was swollen. I could tell it was in pain. Now, what are you going to do there? There's no electricity. There's no running water. But of course they do have water. And I saw that just on the edge of the little village there was a pipe that was running, and it was into a spring. And I also saw that they had a little kitchen out the back of the house where they had a fire, and they had a kettle on the fire. And I said, "I want 2 bowls." So they brought me 2 bowls, and I put hot water in one bowl and I put cold water in the other. It was quite cold because it was coming out of the ground. And and I said, "Will he let me try something?" He was willing to do anything. So I put his hand in the hot water. It was too much, but you know, he looked like he was 40. He was a strong man, you know, he could. So he just did it little by little and I felt it wasn't too hot. And he got used to it. He's looking at me and he's frowning, and the people around are all frowning. They didn't know what I was going to do. And then after 3 minutes, I put it into the cold. And then I got the kettle and I made the kettle a little bit hotter. The hot a little bit hotter. I put my hand in, and then after 30 seconds, back into the cold, and I asked someone to tip that cold out and get some fresh cold, because his hot hand had warmed that water up. And then, so he's near the end of his second, and this is where you usually see it, near the end of the second hot, the frown went off his face, and he started, I didn't know what he was saying, blah, 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 you know, because it's Fijian. And I saw every face start smiling, and I could see them all relaxing, then back into the cold, and he's just talking the whole time. In other words, and I could tell by his body language, what's he got? Pain relief. And then we put a little bit more hot. Often you can make the hottest the hot. I always watch their face. You can tell straight away if they're in discomfort. I just watch their face very closely. So a third in the hot. Why only 3 times? Because you're moving the blood dramatically, and you don't want to exhaust the body. It's far better to do 3 every hour than to do 6 all at once. And then back into the cold. And then I'm drying it, and he's smiling, and I could see that the swelling had gone down a bit, and I could also see that it was starting to drip a bit. You see, it had sealed off. And just that amount of time was enough to just soften where, I think it was in there, soften where the knife had come in, because that wound needed to be open. It needed to stay open until it healed from the inside out. Anyway, so of course by then I had his total trust. I had all the people that are watching, we had quite an audience by now, their trust. And so I said to my interpreter, I said, does anyone know any green leaves, some maybe healing leaves in the forest? And someone nodded and they ran off. And I said, has anyone got a bandage? And someone nodded and they ran off. And so they brought some green leaves back. I don't know what they were, but I crushed them between my hands till the juice came out. And then I just put that all over it. And then I bandaged it up. And then I said to them, now we're going to pray. And they were willing to do anything. And we prayed. Now the next, I was there for about another hour. This man's just walking behind me the whole time. And he's got a little one in his arm and he's blah, 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 blah. He's just telling everyone what happened to his hand. Now what would have happened if I hadn't arrived? There's no hospitals up there. There's no help there at all. He possibly would have lost his hands. I would say that it would have started to get infection. But what is the infection? It's coming from inside of him. And it's just his white blood cells trying to kill the enemy that's in there. That's why when something like this happens, the body needs our help to get more blood into the area, to do those natural remedies that will work with the healing powers of the body to heal. Now, I trust that there's a budding medical missionary there in that man. Do I need to tell him what to do now? I've shown him what to do. So there's no need for me to say another word. If his hand starts to hurt, what do you think he's going to do? He'll just do it again. He'll just do it again. And that's why it's important to listen to the body, to listen to the body. That's why if I have someone with a fever, if they're comfortable and sleeping, I make sure they're drinking, but I just leave them. But if they start to get uncomfortable, and I don't usually take their temperature, I usually just feel with my hand, ooh, that's hot. So that's when you'll step in to give them a tepid bath, or as we talked about the other day, the wet sheet pack, just to bring it down a bit. So you're just watching, and you're allowing the body to teach you, to guide you as to what you should do. So are there any questions in our last 15 minutes? So the question is, would we add Epsom salts to the hot? Epsom salts is magnesium. So one of the main functions of magnesium is to relax tight muscles. So you could add Epsom salts, or you could add sodium bicarbonate. Sodium bicarbonate is an alkalizer, so when you've got an acid condition in the tissues, and wherever you've got something raised, red, swollen, you've got basically an acid environment there. And that's why the greater potato is so good on raised, red and swelling, because it alkalizes the area.
I had a question about the probiotics. So if you were to start taking probiotics, is there a point where it's too much? Should you take it for a certain amount of days?
It depends. The probiotic depends very much. If a person's just had a course of antibiotics, they should take probiotics for 3 months. That's about how long it's going to take to totally restore the flora in the gut. It takes quite a while.
Last January, my wife and I had COVID, and one of the remedies that we used was flu balm, and we understand that the cayenne pepper was one of the ingredients, and it helped us a lot. And so I used to really put a lot of hot sauce in my food, but we stopped that already. And so I struggle because I like to put a little bit of hot, and somebody said cayenne pepper is good, but I read somewhere that it's also an irritant to the stomach. Is that?
That's a good question. Chili is an irritant to the stomach, black pepper is an irritant to the stomach. The chili comes from the chili family, but the cayenne comes from the capsicum family. So even though cayenne pepper can be very, very hot, it never irritates the stomach. And in the book Back to Eden by Jethro Kloss, he devotes half a page to every herb, 10 pages to cayenne pepper. See, what you can do with a herb, you can find the herb and then you can find the actives. The actives in a herb means its effect on the body. And you will not find that the cayenne pepper has an irritating effect. It has a stimulating effect. And this is where it confuses a lot of people, because what it's stimulating is blood. So it's not an irritant, it's a blood stimulant.
Okay, what about jalapeno?
What about?
Jalapeno?
Jalapeno, I think that's from the chili family.
Chili family.
Is that right? So it's more the chili, yeah.
Okay.
But if you like hot food, you can get some very hot cayenne peppers.
Thank you. I think I know what I'm going to put in my lunch today.
I have a question about water. I was told by someone that it takes the body about 15 minutes to process 4 ounces of water. Is that approximately correct? Or?
Yeah, that would be about right.
Okay, so approximately 16 ounces an hour spaced out properly. I mean.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it can
All
be.
right. The other question I have, you mentioned taking a little water with lemon and or cayenne right before a meal to help to build the hydrochloric acid. I believe that's what I heard you say. Is that right before the meal?
Just. And what it would be something like a quarter or a third of a glass. And so it's minimal.
Barbara, I have an online question. It says, I've been sick since 2015 and have had both knees replaced. The surgeon replaced my knees and I was allergic to the nickel that they replaced them with. It took 2 years to find a doctor to help me get them replaced with titanium. During the course of all this, I was bit by a tick and caught Lyme disease. Took 6 months to get over the Lyme disease. Ended up getting Lyme disease-induced rheumatoid arthritis. Now I also came down with eczema. I have tried to use health reform as well as eliminate all foods with lichen and nightshades. I take 2 hydrochlor something each day, 1 in the morning and 1 at night. 3 ibuprofen for inflammation. I've tried to go without the meds, but I can hardly move at all.
Now, I'm sure that this lady has gone through physiotherapy, because physiotherapy is vital to help the body recover. And I'm so sorry to hear about what happened with her knees, but if she can keep her weight down, it'll be a lot easier. And if she could swim, swimming is probably the best thing. The next best thing would be exercise bike or the rebounder, and she would just start with a little tiny jig on the rebounder, but she's got to start building up her body. And the 5 allergens certainly must be stopped, and as soon as possible get off the medication, because the medication, it's very, very difficult to heal while on medication.
I have a question about clothing. Should we wear just cotton shirts? What about those polyester sports shirts for kids when they do a sport and they sweat and they draw the sweat out of the body?
I know in Australia, a lot of children use the rashy shirts, which are like a nylon-y long sleeve to stop sunburn. And that's actually better than the sunscreen. And the children aren't wearing them for very long. So I don't think it matters too much to have a rashy shirt on for a few hours while you're at the beach. But it's what we wear predominantly that has an effect. So ideally, predominantly the skin, the fabrics that touch our skin should be natural fibre. So I didn't put my children in that. I used to just put t-shirts and board shorts on my kids when we went to the beach, and a hat on, and I'd put zinc on their nose and zinc on the tips of their ears if necessary. And right in the beginning of the day and right at the end of the day, they could take their hats and shirts off when the sun wasn't so strong. But I know that a lot of parents do put them in, do you call them rashy shirts? Rashy shirts that you put on children when you go to the beach to stop them burning. They're nylon.
She's saying rash guards.
Rash guards.
That's what they all of that.
That's what you call them here. Okay.
Beach shirts.
Beach shirts, yeah, yeah. Yeah, and of course I would far prefer that to sunscreen.
Now the question is, what it can be given instead of HDHD medicine?
Sorry, can you say that again?
What can be given to a child instead of giving a prescription ADHD medicine for attention deficit?
Well, there's a very, very good book by Dr. Bruce Fife. And Dr. Bruce Fife has written quite a few books, but the one that talks about this is Stop Autism Now. Now, it's not just about autism, it's also about attention deficit syndrome, hyperactivity, and he shows how stopping these foods are essential to conquering this, and also taking the coconut oil. Because the coconut oil breaks down because of its medium chain fatty acids, so we'll look at that a little bit on Friday night, it breaks down to ketones. And he shows how ketones in the body are neurohealers, neuroprotectors. And he has lots of stories in there, even about children conquering epilepsy. So even though it says Stop Autism Now, it's about all childhood neurodegeneration. Neuroprotectors.
I have a friend who asked me to ask this question. She said, what do you think of using pregnenolone for severe adrenal insufficiency?
My suggestion is, instead of pregnenolone, to use the Anna's yam cream, because the Anna's yam cream, it boosts the process that the body uses to make pregnenolone and then progesterone, and it's from progesterone that the adrenal hormones are made. So I personally would prefer to work with the body processes to do that. One of the causes of adrenal fatigue is stimulants, because stimulants like caffeine, they take energy from the adrenal glands to produce that, little boost of energy when someone has a cup of coffee. But it's also what we call burning the candle at two ends causes adrenal fatigue, which is just overwork, not getting enough sleep. So for someone with adrenal fatigue, it's essential that they start going to bed early, start allowing their body to recover and revive. And the Anna's wild yam cream applied to the skin twice a day will stimulate that pathway that the body uses to make pregnenolone, then progesterone, and then from progesterone comes the adrenal hormones.
When you speak of natural fiber, I know cotton is considered a natural fiber, so I have kind of a two-part question here. So would that be wool and cotton? And would that be silk?
Yeah, any natural fibre. There's many fabrics.
What about rayon? Is that considered a natural fiber?
Rayon, viscose, and modal are all made from wood, so they are considered natural fibre. But
Right.
the very process of making them can use chemicals, so when you buy them, you must wash them and hang them in the sunshine. And that will be enough, but you also have to do that with cotton.
All right, the other part to my question is, I have heard that using two types of fabric on your body at the same time can cause confusion to the nervous system. Is that correct?
Not necessarily, no.
Okay.
Hi. I have my second mom. She's going to be 92 soon, and she has kyphosis and osteoporosis. She's had 5 fractures in her back. She has another one. And she's had glue put in her back before, but she doesn't want to be put to sleep at her age. And I've been trying to give her, natural foods and greens and Celtic salt. What else can we do for her back?
You can buy a comfrey cream, and if you can buy the leaf, or even get comfrey, you can put poultices straight on. Now, comfrey contains a growth stimulant. So it can stimulate rapid healing in the tendons, ligaments, muscles, tissues, skin and bones. Its nickname is knit bone. So it contains a growth stimulant. And also remember that the muscles, the ligaments and the tendons, they can be built up to compensate or accommodate for any injuries in the bones, and that's why exercise is so important.
Well, she's afraid if she exercises or turns a certain way, she's going to get another fracture.
Swimming, she won't get a fracture if she swims. And if someone can't swim, I say get flippers and a kickboard. But the body must move, it must move.
Okay, and if somebody has a cyst, like under the skin, like the size of a large pea, but a small hole at the top, is there a way to put a poultice on it to get it out?
Castor oil. Castor oil. Usually with cysts, the castor oil will help to break it down. But something else with the bones is the Anna's wild yam cream. The Anna's wild yam cream boosts progesterone, and progesterone stimulates osteoblast cells. Your osteoblast cells are your bone building cells.
And you were talking about food, like with liquid, they have to digest before you digest your food. And you hear that soups are so healthy for you, but they're mostly liquid. So are they really that healthy?
What you will find with many cultures, they have a thin, hot soup to start the meal. And because it's hot and because it's high in minerals, it's in about 10 minutes the body has just absorbed it. And so it can actually be a nice digestive aid to start the meal with a nice thin hot soup. Whereas your soups, like your thicker soups, well, because they're so thick, there's not that much liquid in it, it's not a problem.
Okay. And if I have plantar fibromatosis on my feet, they're the tumors in the arch. So would castor oil be the one thing to use on that as well?
And the other is thuja. It's a herb that has the ability to break down fine protein.
That's in her?
Yeah. And you get it as a cream. So you could rub it, or you can get it as a tincture. So you'd put a few drops of the tincture with the castor oil. Plus, I would do the hot and colds on the feet twice a day. I had plantar fasciitis at one stage, and your plantar fascia is the ligament that runs on the bottom of your foot in your arch. And the doctor, because I wondered what was the matter with my foot, it wasn't healing. And he said, you've got plantar fasciitis, that will take 10 months to heal. So what I did was I did hot and colds twice a day. In fact, when I was travelling, I had 2 buckets in the car. No matter where I went, I did it at least once a day, and if I could, twice a day. And it totally healed in 6 months. Now, the doctor said it would take 10 months, and I have absolutely no problems now with that at all. So it obviously totally healed. Whereas we had a lady do our program, 18 months she's been limping with plantar fasciitis. So we did hot and colds morning and night, and within 3 days she was walking without a limp. She's not healed, but she's nearly there.
Thank you.
So the hot and colds are very powerful.
Hold on one second. I have an online question again. Can you take the HCI powder in capsules at mealtime to help with HCI?
Most hydrochloric acid is taken from the stomach of the pig, so I do not advise that. But you can get something called betaine hydrochloride. And betaine hydrochloride is an extract from beetroot, betaine hydrochloride, and it can boost hydrochloric acid. Sometimes you can get betaine hydrochloride and you look at the ingredients, it's got porcine in it. If it's got porcine in it, P-O-R-C-I-N-E, that's from the pig's stomach.
Okay. I've heard a couple of people talk about taking clay, different clays from different parts of the world that seems to have some benefits. What can you tell us about that from your research?
Clay can be taken as part of a detox, that is true, but I don't take clay and I don't think I've ever taken clay. But some people use it as part of a detox.
Okay, I'm sorry. So I have a friend that has carpal tunnel, and she's had this surgery, but it's still not 100%. So I know I heard something about frankincense and myrrh, but I didn't know if you had a better...
So what that lady needs to do is hot and colds.
Hot and colds.
And castor oil. And she certainly can put a bit of frankincense with the castor oil. But if I were her, I'd wear castor oil, my hand wrapped in castor oil every single night. I would do hot and colds every morning and every evening, and she will find that that will heal. In fact, anyone that has carpal tunnel, that will heal the carpal tunnel without having to go to surgery.
Okay. And then a question over here, how late can you drink water before you go to bed?
Well, some people drink 16 ounces of water, go to bed and sleep all night. I can't. So it's just a matter of you finding out what works for you.